.NET Core by default compiles your application to a DLL, which is then bootstrapped and loaded by the .NET runtime. But what if you want to make a .exe out of that? Let's mash on that. Hi everybody, so I've started up a brand new application here, and contrary to what I normally do, it's actually not our standard web application. I actually wrote a command line application today just for fun. So I'll just take you guys through it real quickly, and then we'll see what's necessary to make it a .exe instead of a DLL. So this is the Unix utility ls, which is equivalent to the Windows utility dir, except that it's better in pretty much every way. So this was, I feel like I wrote an ls tool once in some systems programming class decades and decades ago, and it's a surprisingly complex utility for what it does, because it's got all sorts of functionality built into it, from sorting to wildcards, recursion, all that stuff. So our version here is very simple. All it is going to do is it's just going to list the files in a directory. So if I can just kick this off here inside the beast that is Visual Studio, then I should just get a list of the files in a directory once debug has started.
See, I'm a little bit disappointed already, Simon, because I thought you were going to say that you were able to rewrite all of ls in 6 lines of code. So
well, I'd like to. So I will get to some of that and how I would like to rewrite ls in that way, but I can't at the moment. Okay, so here we go. This is just listed out all the files in this directory along with the create timer. So I just checked this out of GitHub, so it's all the same time. So if you're interested in seeing the source code, my fabulous ls utility, it's on the Asp.Net Monsters GitHub. We'll throw it in the notes below here. So we'll just finish that up in here, and we'll go take a look at the directory that gets produced here. So in ls, we have this bin directory, debug, netapp core, and you can see here that there is in fact no exe file here. So in order to run this from the command line, you have to do something like .net run, and there we go. So I would like to run ls.exe ideally, but I can't at the moment. So let's take a look and see what we need to do to fix that. So we need to jump over into the project.json file to start with here. And there's a couple of things that we need to add and manipulate in here. The first is to add the .NET runtime that is not netapp core. So we'll use net 451 for this. And then we need to add a runtime down here to tell it kind of what platform we're going to be running on here. So this is the Windows 7 x64 runtime. This could probably be Windows 10 at some point, but I think the idea here is this is going to be backwards compatible all the way back to Windows 7, which is a surprisingly long time ago now. So this is the majority of what we need here, but we're going to see some errors if we save this here, and that is related to this net app or netcore.app here, because we're no longer building this app in this fashion. So we can take this out of here, and we're going to replace it with the net standard library here. And I'm going to save that immediately because it's going to go off into a big package restore for that. And this is going to install all of .NET Standard. So .NET Standard is kind of like a core distribution of .NET. So if you remember years ago, there was that client profile for .NET and a server profile. So this is kind of the same sort of thing, but this is supposed to be a basic standard that every platform that supports .NET is going to support. So everything from Xbox to Linux to OS X to Windows to universal apps to Windows Phone apps. You guys know my feelings on Windows Phone.
I was just going to ask. I don't know how many. I think I was one of the last ones out there that, I have my wife and my kids still, and now they don't like it because they can't play Pokemon Go, and I have an Android phone and I can. So
that's the killer app right there. That's going to be the nail in the coffin of Windows Phone is Pokemon.
I think so. I have like 3 devices to replace in my household right now, and it's not going to be Windows phones.
All right, so we have added all of the stuff in here. There's been a big package restore that's gone on here, and we've restored a bunch of .NET Standard Library, which contains basically all of those namespaces that you know and love from the past. So let's go now, and we're going to just run .NET build. Yeah, I'm going to spell build correctly. Okay, so that has gone off and done some building for us. So let's go up here and see what we get in our bin directory again here. So now you can see that we've got 2 directories here. So we've got .NET 4.5.1. And in there we have this nicely compiled exe here, which we can use. And then we also have like a similar structure over here in NetApp Core, which has just a few other bootstrapping libraries as part of it. But we have ls.c, so we can go and run that. We'll run bin debug net 451 ls.exe, and that does exactly what we would have hoped it would do. And this is all relatively portable now, so we can take this and move it to other places on our machine. So it doesn't depend on any like libraries or any files in there. It does still depend on there being a .NET framework installed, which is something that would have been nice to get rid of. So back when this whole like .NET Core thing was first announced, one of the pieces that was very popular was the idea that we could compile native binaries. So when you compile a .NET application, it actually compiles it down to this intermediate language, which is the same for any language that you write on .NET. So you'd end up with like the same language for compiling your VB.NET applications as you would for like IronPython, as you would for F#, any of those things, all compiled down to this IL, this intermediate language. And that's basically like, I guess it's kind of like Java bytecode in that it's instructions that are specific for this hypothetical intermediate language CPU. But the difference between Java and .NET is what happens at that point in time. So Java will take that and it will kind of run it on a virtual machine, and .NET will do just-in-time compilation of that. So it'll take it and it will compile it into
Bring it to native code.
Yeah, into a native binary, but it's going to be done sort of like the first time that you run the application. So you always take a little bit of a performance hit that first time. Plus, if your program has any dependencies, it's going to need those dependencies. So the files that get produced out of this program or this like ls.exe, this is still dependent on there being a .NET framework installed on the machine. But there was this hope that we would have native binaries. So this would be like, what do they call it, ahead of time compilation, something like that, which seemed kind of strange to me because it's just like regular compilation if you're coming from a C or C++ background or something
right,
like
it's
that.
just flipping it on its head because it's not happening just in time at runtime anymore. It's actually going to that native format, and then that would though inherently increase the size of your binary then, right?
Right, so you would statically link in all of the libraries that we get separately as part of the .NET framework. So like all of the stuff over here in .NET Standard, you'd get linked in. So your ls executable would be a fairly chunky sort of executable as compared with if you had written it in C.
But it would be standalone, and it would be unlike other .NET libraries that ship with 72 DLLs in their folder when you ship, or .NET exe, this would just all be in one exe.
That's right. So I was hoping to like demo that, but I hadn't looked at it in a while, and it turns out that it did not make the 1.0 release or the preview 2 release of the tooling. So hopefully that is something that is going to come down the line fairly swiftly. I haven't seen it like rearing its head on roadmaps, but I'm sure it is going to be in there. So hopefully that's something we'll see soon, and you'll be able to just build completely native binaries out of it and throw them on Docker containers or whatever else you need to do seamlessly.
So when you go back to the project.json there, Simon, I think what we're saying here is that from the frameworks that you're going to be running, you have the 4.5.1 there as the framework, .NET Standard Library or Net Standard Library 1.5.0. Can we say then that as a minimum, the target computer will have to have .NET 4.5.1 installed? 4.5.1 or higher?
You could run it with .NET Core. So if we take a look at that .NET Core directory in here,
there's one for each.
There
right?
is still one for each of those. So I didn't necessarily have to add that 451, but it felt like a good thing to add at the time. So you need to have something like some .NET framework available on the machine for this to actually run, and that framework basically has to implement at least .NET standard.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I think that was pretty much everything I wanted to show off today. So,
well, we are running a contest right now, and things are getting exciting, Simon.
Yeah, we've had some pretty good entries so far, including this great animated GIF of one of our entrants walking to the other end of his very large yard and using that to configure his application.
It was actually painting a progress bar based on his GPS coordinates on a mobile phone. So he was his position was actually painting how far down the property he was, and that was actually what was being used. And that was a configuration source. So hit our website, ASP.NetMonsters.com. We have Summer of Config. That's the contest that's going on right now. Look for the angry kitty holding the sign. Get your participation hat on. You still have, this is early August, the time of recording and the time we're showing this, so make sure you still got 30 days plus to get an entry and do it. There's some great things. We've got one that is configuring a web page via tweets, so changing configuration settings by sending out tweets. The other one is actually doing voice recognition from a WAV file in your config directory and setting that to be the text that's displayed on a page. Pretty crazy stuff. Again, this is not meant to be practical or useful. It's just meant to get you coding on ASP.NET and ASP.NET Core. So we welcome everyone's entry in that.
You know what I was most impressed with about that GPS one was how many devices were involved in filming that. So he must have had like at least one laptop, a phone, possibly a camera or another laptop to film it.
Yes. That was a legit entry, right?
Yeah, that was fabulous.
Okay, well, thanks for this, Simon, and thanks everyone again for joining us here on the ASP.NET Monsters. Remember to like, comment, and share. Leave your comments down below. Send us an email. Ask us your questions on Twitter, and we'll see everybody here next time on the ASP.NET Monsters.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.